With no plans for Goldberg following Elimination Chamber and Ronda Rousey revealing her biggest fear since returning to WWE, this is Wrestling Hub. My name is John and you're watching the Wrestling Report for February 11th. Before we get into the rest of the video, make sure you subscribe to Wrestling Hub and turn on all notifications to stay up to date with everything in the world of pro wrestling. Also, don't forget to follow us on Instagram at Wrestling Hub Official and also follow us on Twitter at Wrestling_Hub. With some fans not too happy about Adam Cole feuding with the likes of Orange Cassidy, AEW President Tony Khan talked to PW Insider regarding this criticism. The Adam Cole that's here has main evented numerous Dynamites and Rampages, has been one of our biggest drawing wrestlers. The Adam Cole vs. Orange Cassidy program is one of the biggest drawing programs we've ever had in the history of AEW. They have done big numbers on every show they've been on, and it's been a big part of our ratings success in recent months. It's been the matches they did with each other. Before Orange Cassidy and the Best Friends, Adam Cole wrestled a number of matches also against Jungle Boy. He beat Jungle Boy. Of course, Orange Cassidy and Jungle Boy both #1 contenders. He beat both of them, and he's beaten everybody else he's wrestled in a sanctioned match, including a lot of main events. So wherever he's been before this, he's never been presented to as wide of an audience as consistently as a main event wrestler. The Lights Out match being an exception to that, but that was not a sanctioned match. Did not go on his record. You mentioned Britt Baker. Britt Baker had a similar arc where Britt had really come into her own as a wrestler. She had won a match against Thunder Rosa under kind of dubious circumstances, but that's a win on her record. So she had beaten Thunder Rosa, ironically, at Beach Break in 2021, and then later at the St. Patrick's Day Slam. Thunder Rosa won the Lights Out match. But it wasn't long after that where Britt Baker ended up with the best record and went on to Double or Nothing and won the World Championship. Of course, this is coming off just weeks after losing this Lights Out match, and it hasn't slowed down Britt at all. Frankly, Adam Cole, all the great matches and all the great wins he's had, I don't think that's going to slow him down at all. We saw on Rampage, he looked better than ever. I thought his promo was very strong, and I expect more of that from him. Convincing performances, strong promos. So, he is a very highly regarded person who has been incredibly valuable since he arrived in AEW. Of course, it looks like Cole will soon be getting a shot at Hangman Page in the AEW World title at the Revolution pay-per-view. While he was on standby for the Royal Rumble, Rob Van Dam would unfortunately not make his return to WWE. On the Foundation podcast, the Hall of Famer touched on what is missing in pro wrestling today. What pro wrestling lacks right now is a lack of the old school fundamentals. When I was trained by the original Sheik, he definitely wasn't a high flyer in any way. I had to do his kind of wrestling, which was all about getting your opponent to the ground, trying to pin him, trying to pin his shoulders to the mat every chance we got. I had to learn how to sneak in a backflip or a spin around that. When I was in All Japan, Stan Hansen used to give me crap when I was real young. On his podcast, AEW commentator Jim Ross mentioned the depth of AEW's and WWE's rosters, comparing today's wrestling landscape to that of the 90s. There's so much depth in AEW today and so much depth in WWE today that it's hard to blame negatives on one person. This is truly more of an ensemble cast era than it is the one shining star. There's no Hulk Hogans, no Stone Colds, there's no major stud pulling the wagon, to a degree I should say. It's a different world, people want volume. You always have to have some depth. That's the one beautiful thing I'll say about the two big companies today, AEW and WWE. They've got depth, they've got bodies, they've got a huge cast they can draw from. With fans awaiting his next move in pro wrestling following his release from WWE, Killer Kross talked to Signed by Superstars, revealing that Finn Balor was his favorite opponent from NXT. In NXT, definitely without a doubt. Him and I were always on the same page with putting together the match, where it was, what was going on in the conflict, what people needed to see. He played a perfect David in a David and Goliath, and I like to think that I did my part in terms of getting people to believe that he's somebody who could win in that sort of situation. That was something that that the chain of command was concerned about. They were wondering if people were so invested and that nobody was going to be Kross. I was like, how do we get people to buy into that? He's just so over and so good, so perfect. He's the perfect dance partner for all that stuff. So him and I, after the first match, we were hoping the next time it was going to happen, it would be at Mania. It was the first thing he said when he came through the curtain. I was like, holy hell. Well, then I thought, yeah, he's right. That would be Demon at Mania or something like that. That would have been awesome. Prior to the Royal Rumble, it had been reported that many women were not interested in participating in the pay-per-view due to TJ Wilson not being there to produce. The former wrestling star would have to retire from in-ring competition because of a neck injury, as it looks like that's why he's been away from the company. Dave Meltzer would note in the Wrestling Observer newsletter regarding TJ Wilson not being around within the company, there was word that he was quitting weeks ago, but we were told that was miscommunication. He would be back and he's on good terms with WWE. He's taking time off to heal his neck. If you recall, his neck issues were basically the same injury as the late Christopher Reeve, that he was very lucky to be alive, and it's an absolute miracle he's not confined to a wheelchair. The fact he's able to function well doesn't change that his neck is in terrible shape and can flare up. With her recently returning to WWE for the Women's Royal Rumble as the Impact Knockouts champion, Mickie James told Instant Culture that WWE will probably work with Impact in the future. I think yes, we will work together again. I don't know that it will be immediately. I think this was an opportunity for WWE to test the water, to see if it was something people talk about and they say this will be great and this will get a lot of ratings and this will be a big buzz. But until it's actually in front of them, I think they can't actually see it. Speaking to Mark Andrews, Sasha Banks touched on her journey from the independent scene to NXT as she noted that it was a whole different ballgame. It was so hard because I came in like, I know how to wrestle. Then I got slapped in the face and I said, no you don't, not WWE style. There is so much more to it. You have the red light looking at you. You have people on the floor going go, go, go. It's so much coming from the independent scene where it was like do whatever. There was no psychology, no time cues. When you come to WWE, it's a whole different ballgame going from the independents to NXT. That was a whole different level as well, but Raw and SmackDown, there's no comparison. Making his AEW debut in July of 2020 to face Cody Rhodes for the TNT title, Eddie Kingston has become one of the hottest stars in the promotion. Recently, the trash-talking extraordinaire has been absent from programming, thanks to a fractured orbital bone. According to Meltzer, Kingston is expected to make his comeback next week. His last match took place on January 8th for a dark taping, so hopefully he's clear to step back between the ropes. Given the rebranding of NXT, WWE is now looking for stars that are not independent wrestlers but are those that have legitimate sports backgrounds. Talking to Renee Paquette, AEW star Kyle O'Reilly pointed out an issue he sees with NXT. I think people in wrestling are really rare in the sense that you really have to love it. I think that might be an underlying problem in this new NXT. There's a lot of people coming in that I don't think really have that true love for it. I'm sure they'll do well. They'll make a big splash, be a big star, and make a ton of money. But at the end of the day, if your heart isn't really in it, I don't know. It's tough. Speaking of O'Reilly, fans are wondering where he's been given his absence from programming. Meltzer would explain in the Wrestling Observer newsletter that the reason Bobby Fish and Kyle O'Reilly haven't been out with Adam Cole and the Young Bucks thing has stopped is because O'Reilly was given time off since his wife just had a baby. It is expected to resume when he returns. After taking time away from WWE to start a family, Ronda Rousey is back in action and looking to take on Charlotte Flair at WrestleMania after winning the Women's Royal Rumble. On a Facebook stream, Rousey would reveal her biggest fear since making her comeback. Sorry if I leak through the hoodie on my screen. On the stream, which has become my new paranoia, which is that I'm going to start lactating live on television. Like would I? Well, on Raw, SmackDown, or wrestling or something. That's why it was pretty bold wearing the white shirt on Raw. Oh god, please do not lactate. Olympic gold medalist Gable Steveson is seen as a huge future prospect for WWE. The company signed him to a contract last year, and speaking to KSTP Sports, Gable revealed he is nearly done with his collegiate career and is almost ready to fully commit to WWE. It might hit, just because I'm getting my last matches, like really wrestling before I get into the WWE, so it might hit different. You never know. So, when that time comes, I walk out for the senior night and I get my hand raised for the last time, it might hit. You never know. Reportedly, Goldberg has one more match left on his WWE contract, as he'll be taking on Roman Reigns for the Universal title at the upcoming Elimination Chamber event in Saudi Arabia. With his appearances for SmackDown before the pay-per-view set, it appears there are no plans for Goldberg following the title match with Reigns. Following her Royal Rumble return, Lita is now set to face Raw Women's Champion Becky Lynch at Elimination Chamber. It was previously reported that AEW had an interest in signing Lita, as she detailed why she did not take them up on that offer when speaking to Esquire Middle East. AEW is doing exciting stuff. It's brought new life in the industry. Anytime there's competition, it's good. It revives the industry. When they reached out to me, I did consider it. I said, we can talk. I'm interested. You guys are doing some interesting stuff. But ultimately, upon talking to them, it just made me say to myself, but I have all of these things already. I have those things with my home that I've known for 20 years, with the people that I've worked with for 20 years. Basically, I gave them my blessing. I said, I will watch you and I will support you, and I want you guys to do great, but this just doesn't feel like the right fit for me right now. When she was released from WWE, Mickie James would be sent her belongings in a trash bag, which led to apologies from many in the company. Now James has told Sportskeeda that even WWE President Nick Khan said he was sorry at the Royal Rumble. Nick Khan came up to me at the show and apologized. I don't even know that he was a part of, I think he was part of the company, but I hadn't met him or knew who he was at that time because it was early transitional days. But even he apologized to me at TV. This should have never happened. I agree, it should have never happened. It shouldn't have happened 10 years ago, and now it'll never happen again.
One, two, three. Woo! On three, give me two woos. 1, 2, 3. Anyway, thank you guys for coming out. This is the greatest wrestler of all time, Ric Flair. Here's another buddy of mine, Brian Blair, the Killer Bee. We got Skinner, Steve Kern in the back. Little scary, man, wrestling those alligators. Sorry, guys, I got half a buzz on. A couple White Claws, 8%ers. But anyway, in honor of I'm number 2, but in honor of the 3rd greatest wrestler of all time. By the way, my daughter's getting a shower across the street. She's coming over in a minute to sing karaoke. But in honor of the 3rd greatest wrestler, because he's number 1, I'm number 2. In honor of the 3rd greatest wrestler of all time, that no good low dog, down dog rattlesnake, Steve Austin. Somebody give me a hell yeah!
And this was your Pro Wrestling News Update. I hope you're all having a great day. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you later.